TC, you asked for it. You got it. Wayne Newton is coming to Parks Casino.
Fabulous.
Huh?
Can't wait.
Mr. Las Vegas.
Can't wait.
Yeah, the legendary Wayne Newton, one night only, August 26th at Parks Casino. Who else is coming to Parks Casino? Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, Nick Offerman, Jay Moore and Daryl Hammond, the duo from SNL. How about this? Joe Conklin, a really funny Philly guy, and the City Rhythm Orchestra. I knew them when.
Isn't that cool?
They performed at my wedding.
Wow, you really did know them when.
Rhythm Orchestra.
That's
because
so cool.
I worked with Pete Spina, and he was like the leader of the band.
Decades ago.
I'm lucky, believe me, that they were not as big as they are today because I could never have afforded them then. But yeah, Conklin and the City Rhythm Orchestra on Friday, April 14. That's like a quintessential Philly night. Sounds great. Styx and Foreigner and a whole lot more. For information, tickets, or a list of upcoming attractions, go to parkscasino.com, parks with an X. This is how you win. Got to be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Newsletter looking great today. I spoke yesterday about Ron DeSantis' comments pertaining to Ukraine, which is the subject, by the way, of today's poll question. Is the war in Ukraine a territorial dispute? I wonder if we'll get a different answer today because of the drone, the collision between the fighter jet, the Russian fighter jet, and the drone then having to crash land, if that's the proper way to describe it, than we would have received yesterday. In other words, I am arguing that far more people today will say it is not a territorial dispute. I think that DeSantis' argument just suffered a setback because of the collision over the Black Sea. You know by now what he said. He responded to a Tucker Carlson questionnaire and said, while the U.S. has many vital national interests, securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness within our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. A number of Republicans stepping out in opposition to DeSantis's assessment. The Hill has a piece today that we link to at Smerconish.com. Marco Rubio, I guess, at the top of the list because he's a fellow Floridian. He has himself run for president. He has national stature. Quote, well, it's not a territorial dispute in the sense that any more than it would be a territorial dispute if the United States decided it wanted to invade Canada or take over the Bahamas. Just because someone claims something doesn't mean it belongs to them. Lindsey Graham also stepping out in opposition to what DeSantis had to say. If Putin loses in Ukraine, the world resets in all the right ways. If he wins in Ukraine and the West capitulates just like in the past, then more conflict is coming. More and more. Liz Cheney, the Ukrainian people are fighting for their freedom. Surrendering to Putin and refusing to defend freedom makes America less safe. Nikki Haley, another of the Republicans standing in opposition to that which DeSantis had to say on Ukraine. It'll be interesting to see if he walks anything back that he said to Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's sounding similar to Trump in that regard, so there's not a lot of room for him to grow with the base of the party because I would think that the people who are of that mindset are already with Trump, but to be continued. And, of course, we lead today at Smerconish.com with the story of the drone. We went with CNN's coverage. A Russian fighter jet forced down a U.S. Air Force drone over the Black Sea on Tuesday after damaging the propeller of the American MQ-9 Reaper drone, according to the U.S. military. I think this sort of thing, not the downing of a drone, but this sort of cat and mouse, I'm reminded of Richard Clark, the national security advisor who has been a guest of the program recently, who uses the word baselines. You know, before all of a sudden this becomes like the big story that the media glom onto, how often does this take place? I find myself asking. Yesterday, 57% in the poll question yesterday agreed with the Biden administration that the response to SVB and Signature is not a bailout. The Dow closed up more than 300 yesterday. The headline from the New York Times today says after days of panic, bank executives can breathe again. But hang on, there are questions being raised about Credit Suisse. So I don't think we're out of the woods. And today will be a very interesting day in terms of what goes on in the markets. Okay, that's the page one news, at least a little bit of it. There's a lot more at Smerconish.com on the website and in the newsletter. Please make sure that you're voting on today's poll question, which asks, is the war in Ukraine a territorial dispute? A lot of voting on that already. TC, it is my lunch of first resort.
I know. It is your first love, truly. What are you going to do about
Whatever you may call it, a hoagie, a sub, a Zepp. I mean, it's a hoagie to me because that's the way we refer to it here. I eat a lot of sandwiches. I eat a lot of sandwiches. I have a few of my preferred places to go.
Right.
And I will drive for a sandwich.
You will drive for the right sandwich.
Yeah. Sam's Italian Market for a tuna hoagie.
Okay.
Antonella's for my basic Italian hoagie or sausage and peppers. They call it boardwalk sausage and peppers.
Got it.
I will also I'll get a primo hoagie because they're proximal and they're clean and they do a nice job.
And the primo hoagie is an Italian, like Antonella's, right?
Yeah, it's not like Antonella's. Antonella's is old school.
Yeah, it really is.
Antonella's is old school. And the tuna hoagie, oftentimes on a Saturday, I'll tell you my routine. Okay. On a Saturday, I will often get off of CNN, I quickly call you. How was the show? We critique it.
We do.
We go our separate ways.
Yes.
I usually drive.
Best time of the week, 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Because you're leaving my company?
Because I'm talking to you.
And then I will usually drive to Sam's Italian Market.
Right.
Which is halfway to my mom's house.
Oh.
Get a tuna hoagie and then have lunch with her on a Saturday afternoon.
Got it.
That's my Saturday.
Okay. When you say a tuna hoagie, you mean like tuna salad on white bread?
No. I mean fresh tuna salad on an Italian hoagie roll.
So tuna salad on white bread.
With
why did you say no? That's exactly what I just said.
You said white bread, as if it's like sandwich, like it's.
Okay, but it's a white. Did you read the Wall Street Journal article?
Yeah, I'm talking to you now, though. It's not how I'm not getting it on two slices of bread.
Okay, but it's the bread that you're having is white. It's not a wheat hoagie.
God, no.
Okay,
but there's no such thing.
The whole point.
There's no such thing.
The whole point of the Wall Street Journal article was how to make your sandwich healthier.
I want to tell you something. I was raised on lunch meats. Our refrigerator at home always had, American cheese, boiled ham, Lebanon bologna, some turkey, salami, pepperoni. My father was...
You are so hungry right now. This is hysterical.
Was a sandwich king maker. I mean, he could make, and we're always very liberal in our house when it comes to Miracle Whip.
Oh.
Now, today, in my home, our home, Duke's seems to be my wife's mayonnaise of choice.
Got it.
With swallowing again, with fresh tomatoes. I like to eat a sandwich, but the Wall Street Journal, the reason I'm bringing this up today is the Wall Street Journal says America has a sandwich problem. Most Americans consume too much sodium, sugar, and saturated fat. According to government survey data, sandwiches, which almost half of Americans eat on any given day, are a primary culprit. Nutritionists, doctors, and public health officials are trying to nudge people to make their sandwiches healthier. But how are you going to do that?
Well,
what, a wrap?
Not a wrap. There are very specific ways that you can make it healthier. Not one of which you are going to want to hear.
Tell me.
Because the first one is to switch out white for wheat. So use whole grain. Their point is that as soon as the white bread or cake or whatever the white flour is touches your mouth, it converts to sugar. So whole wheat bread, and then less processed meat, less
and what now we're gonna take off the cheese,
less processed cheese.
What's gonna be left?
Extra vegetables. So use the
vegetables.
Use lettuce and tomato.
My vegetables are sausage and peppers and onions.
Peppers and onions are good.
That's a good sandwich.
And then be very careful with the condiments, because what did you just say you wanted to put on?
Miracle Whip or Duke's.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically.
We're not big on Hellmann's in my house.
It doesn't matter.
We're not big on Hellmann's.
The point is not mayonnaise.
Miracle
Don't
Whip,
use mayonnaise.
Duke's.
Mustard is better for you. Yeah.
You know, I remember on Obama's watch, I think I told you this before, when he ordered something and was ridiculed for it, he asked if they had a Dijon mustard.
Ah.
And I'm like, what's he talking about? I didn't know he meant like Grey Poupon, right?
Right.
He goes, pardon me, sir, do you have some Grey Poupon? So I remember then ordering a sandwich and saying, I would like to get what he had. I'll have what he's having. And ever since, I've never looked back on mustard either.
Okay, well, I'm going to correct myself because the Wall Street Journal says you got to watch the mustard too. Sparing
Jesus.
mustard and ketchup because they're salt vehicles. Ketchup is often high in added sugars too. But listen to this. Surprisingly, mayonnaise isn't always a bad option. It's usually made from eggs and canola or soybean oil, which is high in mono and polyunsaturated fats that are associated with a lower risk of heart disease. Load your sandwich with tomato, lettuce, and other vegetables for fiber and important nutrients.
If you're local to me, Sam's Italian Market in Horsham.
Got it.
For the tuna hoagie. Antonella's for boardwalk sausage. Okay? And Anthony's in the city for a cheesesteak. Anthony's in South Philadelphia for a cheesesteak.
What is the pizza place
those are my go-to.
You like in the city?
And Anthony's. Yeah.
Not Angelo's?
Angelo's, pardon me. What did I just say?
Right?
Angelo's, right.
Okay. Do you know that Dave Portnoy went there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He got like a 9-1.
Yeah. And it deserves it.
Yeah.
And it deserves
Yeah.
it. A lot of attitude.
At Angelo's?
Yeah. A lot of attitude.
New attitude or old, always been that way?
It's always been that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's some places that they feel like it comes with the territory, but I don't want it to be a downer.
Okay, don't let it be a downer.
It's a great pizza, and it is a great cheesesteak. Thank you for correcting me because Angelo's is what I was making reference
Angelo's.
to.
Got it.
All right. Other headlines from Smerconish.com,
There are no more.
the newsletter.
That's the most important thing. It's
I know.
sandwiches
I'm
are
still
the
swallowing.
most important thing.
I'm still swallowing.
So today when you order your sandwich,
Right.
whole wheat,
Yeah, not today. Not today.
lettuce,
No.
extra lettuce, extra tomato.
No, I have something special planned that I'll be eating later, and if it goes according to plan, I will give you a report tomorrow.
Oh,
something
you?
Something I've wanted to do for a long time, and fingers crossed today's the day.
Wait, why fingers crossed? What?
It's unusual. I don't want to say too much about it because then others will be there and
can't do that.
And I can't have them in line.
Can't have that.
And I can't have them in line.
Okay, fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, at Smerconish.com today, take a look at the Michael Irvin story from the Fox affiliate in Dallas. Michael Irvin refiles $100 million Marriott lawsuit, plays surveillance video. It's a 2-minute long video. By now, I assume people know that he had an encounter with a woman that resulted in Marriott saying that he had acted inappropriately. I'm trying to watch my words and be very careful and precise here. Here's the part that's uncontested. He lost his Super Bowl gig as a result of the charges made against him from at this Phoenix Marriott hotel. His lawyers have been demanding the tape, wanted to play the tape. They finally did it in public yesterday. TC, I know you looked at the stills. I watched the whole thing. There's no audio.
I've now watched it.
Okay, and what do you think? What do you see in it?
I think it is obviously impossible to tell what they're saying, but from just looking at it, there's nothing untoward at all.
Touches her arm twice.
Okay, I touch people all the time. See, this is hard. This day and age, I know you're not, quote unquote, allowed to touch people. That's invading their space and touching them without wanting to be touched. I am a toucher. So that did not faze me one single bit.
Marriott last week in a court filing said that Irvin made unwelcome sexual advances toward a female employee.
So if he did that verbally, we can't know from the video.
Correct. Although I have to ask this question.
Okay.
Because the claim here is that he asked a lewd question about intercourse with a black man.
Okay.
At the end of this encounter, they shake hands. Does that matter?
No.
That does not matter.
It absolutely does not matter.
In other words, if he did say what she claims,
they could still have shook hands at the end of the encounter.
I have to ask the question because I'm a guy. If
Right.
she were that off put,
Yep.
would she nevertheless have extended her hand to him?
She could have, because in the way this could work is that she could have been so shook that she didn't get it. He's a star. She just wanted to get out of the encounter.
A nervous reaction.
Nervous reaction.
A nervous reaction.
She could have been rolling her eyes at him while she's doing that. Okay, yeah, bye. You have no idea.
Okay.
You cannot take that as nothing happened.
In other hotel news, the DeSantis administration in Florida revoking the Hyatt Regency Miami's alcohol license.
What?
Why? Because they hosted a drag queen Christmas. So the Department of Business and Professional Regulation filed a 17-page complaint against the show's venue. The show required people under 18 to be accompanied by an adult. A Drag Queen Christmas is a holiday-themed drag show that tours in 36 different cities and features stars from the reality show RuPaul's Drag Race. This is now...
What is this? So what's the conservative thing about drag queens?
I don't know. And
it is the craziest thing.
I believe...
Focus on something else.
I believe it's probably like the new version of CRT, where you got to look long and hard to even find a drag show, don't you?
But
they're acting like there are drag queens everywhere. Oh, my God.
Well, also, they're acting like there's something like that's going to hurt your children in some way. You don't want to go to see a drag show. Don't go see a drag show.
I got 2 words for you.
What?
Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
Don't you remember SNL?
Or George Santos.
What? George, who's running for re-election?
Didn't he dress up in drag?
Did he? He filed the paperwork, by the way, to run for re-election. We had that at Smerconish.com yesterday. I got to get to this story.
Okay, go ahead.
Got to get to this story. Wellesley College.
Wellesley College.
Alma mater of Hillary Clinton, Madeleine Albright, Nora Ephron. It is a women's college.
It is.
So now the question is, do they admit trans men, meaning born female, but having transitioned and now is a male?
Right.
And they made the decision. It was a non-binding referendum, but yesterday had this vote calling for opening admission to all non-binary transgender applicants, including trans men. They already allow admission to anybody who lives and consistently identifies as a woman, but it's nevertheless still a woman's college.
So that makes sense to me that they would admit trans women. Obviously, a trans woman is a woman. So that makes sense to me. I'm not sure what I think about the trans man.
Right.
I would love to hear from the students who...
Because
here's who I would like to hear from. I would like to hear from the students at Wellesley, and I would also like to hear from a trans man who wants to go to Wellesley, because...
But aren't you essentially now just saying we're no longer a women's college and, we're co-ed? We're a co-ed institution.
Well, if they can allow a trans man, then they should allow a cis man, right? I mean, that's
right.
If I were a cis man and wanted to go to Wellesley, I would say, wait a minute, you're saying that a trans man is a different man, and that's the whole point, is that you shouldn't say that. So that's very interesting.
Isn't an interpretation of this, one way of looking at this, if I want to put on my cynic hat.
Oh, dear.
That Wellesley is saying a trans man is not a man.
But that's my point, is there's no way that's what they're saying.
But
there's no way that's not what they're saying.
But
so
doesn't it appear that way?
But if they are, that's why now they have to allow cis men in.
I would think so. In order to be consistent.
Right.
In order to be consistent.
Yeah, I think this is again, I think sometimes laws or rules or, hasn't quite caught up with gender fluidity and policy. That's what this is all sort of a very nebulous part of the world right now that I think we're all just trying to figure out.
There are great stories at Smerconish.com that we don't have time to cover all of them. One that I think is worthy of attention, and I went with the ABC coverage on this headline, and there was a meeting, not only a meeting at Wellesley, their non-binding referendum, but in San Francisco last night, the Board of Supervisors had a really interesting meeting. Headline, San Francisco Board open to reparations with $5 million payouts. Payments of $5 million to every eligible Black adult. The elimination of personal debt and tax burdens, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years, and homes in San Francisco for $1 a family. These were some of the more than 100 recommendations made by a city-appointed reparations committee tasked with the thorny question of how to atone for centuries of slavery and systemic racism. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors, hearing the report for the first time, voiced enthusiastic support for the ideas listed, with some saying money should not stop the city from doing the right thing. The draft reparations plan, released in December, is unmatched nationwide in its specificity. The committee hasn't done an analysis of the cost of the proposals. Critics have slammed the plan as financially and politically impractical. The Hoover Institution at Stanford, the conservative think tank, said this is going to cost each non-black family in the city at least $600,000. So San Francisco's struggling already with what is really like a hollowed out downtown, a lot of issues having to deal with crime and homelessness. I think this conversation from a fiscal standpoint is not going to help attract folks back into the town who want to live there, even though it's a gorgeous place. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the headlines from Smerconish.com, today's newsletter. Please make sure you're voting. Is the war in Ukraine a territorial dispute? Go there and cast your ballot right now. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.